Split ticket voting is becoming increasingly rare in the United States. However, it was a bit tough to tell that after the 2024 elections, to be fair. Because as we flip between these maps, we can see that Trump won Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, and Michigan. All four states wound up electing Democratic senators. Arizona and Michigan on open seats. Now, Wisconsin, I think, makes the most sense. It was Trump's weakest state, after all, and and you had an incumbent. Nevada was also not that surprising. I think it's more surprising that Trump even won the state. Looking at the Senate elections from 2 years ago, it was also a Democratic victory. Wisconsin was actually a Republican victory 2 years ago, which also differed from how Wisconsin voted in the 2020 election. Just as another fun tidbit. But we saw like this effect of a split ticket, but with how close they were, with Baldwin winning by 0.85 and with Trump winning by 0.86, not that unexpected. It was a 1.7% difference. It's not that big. Michigan, again, with Slotkin winning by 0.34 and Trump winning by 1.4, again, about a 1.7% difference. It's not that extensive. Nevada was a bit more surprising. I get that you had the incumbency advantage, but Rosen got 1.6%, Trump got 3.1%. That's a nearly 5% gap. And Arizona was the most surprising. Trump won the state by 5.5%, and a Democrat on an open seat won this race by 2.4%. That's a nearly 8% difference. You know. So if everything went in line with the presidential election, Republicans actually have 57 seats in the Senate right now. Democrats only 43. That's terrifying. We saw many senators who were Democrats overperform relative to the Republicans. The only swing state that saw a flip was Pennsylvania, voting for McCormick by 0.22 when Trump won the state by 1.7. So we saw that, but the victory for Ohio was much weaker in the Senate, but that was a flip. Montana was much weaker, but that was also a flip against an incumbent. So those make sense, but we still saw 4 states split their tickets. Nonetheless, that was the anomaly. We saw that between looking at 2022 midterms, if you base it off of the 2020 elections, only one state differed, and that was Wisconsin, which voted for Ron Johnson by 1% after supporting Biden by 0.63. If you look at the 2020 elections, however, only one state differed, and that was Maine. Collins won by 8.6%, whereas Biden won Maine by 9.1%. The main reason why is because Susan Collins was popular as an incumbent, and even though, there's been a decline in split ticket voting, she's able to make enough Democrats pleased at her in order to keep the seat. But, look, Arizona and Georgia both narrowly support Biden, but they also both have all of their people go Democratic. Colorado was also a flip, but that was also Democratic. And again, every single seat except Maine was the same, and Maine was because of the popularity of Susan Collins. Now, 2018, we saw a lot of differences from 2016, but that was a blue wave election. It's not directly split ticketing, but, when you look at some of the states that Trump won comfortably in 2020, like Montana and West Virginia, Ohio was 8 points. That was pretty solid. And then you look at who they elect on the Senate side, you'll see Democrat, Democrat, Democrat in those states. And obviously Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona also split their tickets in a similar fashion as the others. Now in 2016, though, every state is the same. Every state votes the same way for senator and president in 2016, which is the first time it happened in U.S. history. Looking at 2012, there was a lot of differences, however. First of all, the Republicans won Nevada by 1.2% in a state that Obama won by 6.7%. Romney won Montana by 13.7%, and yet Tester won re-election by 3.7%. Heitkamp narrowly won the race in North Dakota by 0.91 in a state that Romney won by almost 20 points. Missouri solidly voted for McCaskill, even with Romney winning by 10 points. Indiana voted for Romney by 10 points, and yet the seat still, I think, flipped blue by 6 points. So that effect occurred. Split ticket voting was not quite as common back then, so it does make sense as to why we saw that. 2008 actually had less of it because Democrats actually made huge gains in the Senate in 2008 as they flipped 8 seats. They if we look at the flips and we see them, and a lot of these flip states are in states that voted for for Democrats in 2008. But then again, a lot of them were in flip states relative to the 2008 election as well, like Virginia, North Carolina, and Virginia, North Carolina, and Colorado, and New Mexico. They all flipped blue, both in a presidential election and in a Senate election, which meant that Obama had coattails, which limited split-ticket voting, since the coattail effect is more common, when you don't have split-ticket voting. Nonetheless, though, there was some obvious differences. First of all, Republicans carried Maine by 22.7 points, even as Obama won by 17.3. So that's about a 40-point difference. That's significant split-ticket voting. That's like significant split-ticket voting. You don't really see that. Alaska, Begeek won by 1.2%. He flips a seat. This wasn't on Obama's coattails, though, seeing as McCain won by 21.5%. Now, we know Susan Collins keeps overperforming other Republicans because of her personal popularity and her moderate stances. The reason why Begeek was able to flip the seat of Alaska was because Ted Stevens was a convicted felon. Even though that was later overturned, it was too little too late, and many had said that Ted Stevens would have been kicked out of the Senate, or at the very least out of the Republican conference, if he were to have been reelected. So, thus, a lot of Alaska Republicans voted for him. Alaska is a state that we do sometimes see more significant split-ticket voting on as well. Looking at the House elections and going back to 2022, we saw Democrats actually winning that race by 9.9% after they won a special election, even though this is a state that, 4 years prior, wound up voting for Trump by 10 points. And then in 2024, it votes for Trump by 13 points. And even though the seat flips, Begeek can only win by 2 points. This is a different Begeek, by the way. They are related, though. So Alaska does have a tendency to, if any state can split ticket vote, it's Alaska. It's just Alaska. There weren't really too many other split tickets that you can see. There was Montana and South Dakota. Both would solidly kept their Democrats. And also Arkansas and Louisiana also split the tickets. All 4 states voted for Romney. And while Louisiana and Arkansas was solid, South Dakota and especially Montana wound up being very close. And if they all comfortably reelected their Democrats, they would all either leave office or lose re-election in 2014. But that was not split ticket because all these states voted red in 2012. As a matter of fact, the only difference on that regards was Maine, where Collins won by 37, despite Obama winning by 15. In Colorado, Obama won by 5, and the Republicans won by around 2. Those are the only real differences when you factor in those elections. Otherwise, it was actually pretty consistent with the overall results. 2004, you actually had pretty significant split-ticket voting, because you see North Dakota have a Democrat, despite voting for Bush. We see another split ticket occur in New Hampshire, where Gregg comfortably wins re-election despite John Kerry winning the state. Pennsylvania, we also see a split ticket voting occur. Split ticket occurs in Nevada and Colorado. as well, and also Arkansas. The reason why I bring all this stuff up is because we've seen an increase in political polarization and, split ticket voting is just becoming rarer as a result. Also, look at these elections, and you'll notice that of these last three, almost every single state you'll see twice in the same color. Only Pennsylvania, Maine, and Wisconsin have split Senate delegations anymore, and we're seeing a decrease in them too. Looking at Montana and West Virginia and Ohio, they all lost the split delegations, even though Pennsylvania got one back. Looking at in the 2020 elections, we saw Colorado and Arizona lose their split delegations. Even though Arizona gained one in 2018, we saw split delegations lost in North Dakota, Missouri, Indiana, Florida, and Nevada. So it's just been like a pretty depressing state of affairs, actually, when you realize how much polarization this nation has been undergoing.